We've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it again because this is how things in the NBA go. And today we'll be talking about a report specifically from Shams Charania. He had it on the Pat McAfee show, basically saying at the deadline, we discussed this before, it was rumored, I forget who had said it before, probably Mark Stein, but that the Spurs and Kevin Durant had interest in one another, and that interest now could probably be renewed. As you guys will see on the screen, I put two trades together. I think it's pretty straightforward. One trade is Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and Malachi Brannan, Blake Wesley. You can do whatever you want, draft capital that makes you happy. Everybody has just such a difference in agreement of what their evaluation of what proper draft pick compensation is worthy for a player like Kevin Durant. And then the second trade, instead of Devin Vassell, you do Harrison Barnes with Jeremy Sohan in there. So two packages, again, figure out the draft capital. But if you're truly in the belief, I say this all the time, the way I call it is the Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson approach. They knew after that first season that they had a great game manager in Russell Wilson, which was going to allow them to have a 4-year window to keep that legendary defensive or defense together, the Legion of Boom, which allowed them to win a championship and to be one of the best contenders in the 2010s. Similar, I think they lost a year in that window with the deep vein thrombosis, but you have 2 more years of that window before Wemby gets the max, the super max, whatever it is in that time. You have De'Aaron Fox, and you could argue you have a lot of loose contracts that can work, and stackable contracts, which if you saw our video with Eric Pincus, we discussed that having the stack contracts is huge. And getting a guy like Kevin Durant is going to be cheaper at this point than it would ever be. This package that the Spurs can give now may be better used on Giannis Antetokounmpo if possible. But if Giannis is not available and they need to get a guy who can be third fiddle, with Wemby being the 1 and De'Aaron Fox and Kevin Durant taking turns being the 2, the 3, and whoever they keep filling out the rest of the roster, this could be a really good situation, as it wouldn't rely on Kevin Durant having to be, I don't know if you guys notice, he doesn't play near the rim anymore. He's not the guy he used to be defensively. He's still great, if not one of, or the best movement shooter in the league, and the best shooter not named Curry in the league. So let's break this down and just discuss. Before we continue, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. What do you guys expect and why? I think it's an interesting situation. I've said this repeatedly. If Giannis does ask out, Giannis and Wemby would be the greatest front court in NBA history. I don't care what you guys think. They would be absolutely ridiculous. But Shams Charania today of ESPN on the Pat McAfee show confirmed there was mutual interest between Kevin Durant and the San Antonio Spurs at this year's 2025 NBA trade deadline. The idea of KD pairing with Victor Wembanyama doesn't feel far-fetched. So today we'll discuss the 2 trade machine screenshots that laid out different possible frameworks for what a blockbuster could look like. And no, I didn't put draft capital, as you guys know, due to the fact that I think you can use your imagination on what pick or draft pick compensation is considered fair for the Suns, because everyone's valuation of draft picks or draft capital varies wildly, and I'll let you all figure out that part. So as we said, option 1 goes with depth, and San Antonio sends Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley, and expiring Harrison Barnes to Phoenix for Durant. The Suns gain depth, youth, and long-term rotation pieces while offloading KD's massive cap hit. Now, this also allows them to avoid the second tax apron penalty. The Spurs take on KD's expiring contract, and if they want, they can extend him, and they surround him with Wemby and their solid core. The second one is the Devin Vassell package. Here, Phoenix get a clear return with the top-end potential all-star in Devin Vassell, alongside Johnson, Branham, and Wesley. As I mentioned earlier, the other deal was Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley, and the expiring Harrison Barnes. This one, you replace Harrison Barnes and Jeremy Sohan with Keldon Johnson's contract. So, to me, Phoenix gets a clear return with more top-end value in Devin Vassell alongside Johnson, Branham, and Wesley. That's 4 quality rotation players, 2 with real upside in exchange for Durant. From a financial and roster building standpoint, I think this is a smoother trade than the first. However, I think a lot of people would say if you're the Spurs, you want to do the first trade because you don't want to pay Jeremy Sohan. However, whichever deal happens or not, the takeaway is that if the interest is mutual, then there's more than one way to build a framework for KD to the Spurs. And that's draft pick compensation is the last thing to worry about because the Spurs have enough to get the deal done, in my opinion. So that's where I'm going to leave this. I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. What do you guys think and why? Do you think this is an interesting situation in terms of worth the Spurs' time in trying to make not amends, but maybe the leap into contention? And if Giannis stays in Milwaukee, is this the fish they should go after, or is there somebody else that you think they should go after if you were the Spurs? I think obviously everybody would have their own druthers if they had to choose, but I think both of those trades were legitimate offers that realistically could entice the Spurs and make sense as it keeps them maybe not contending, but playoff worthy. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments.